300 Spartans held back 40,000 Persians. Full cinematic narration script. 40,000 soldiers stood at the edge of a narrow mountain pass. Steel shimmered in the sun. Drums echoed between the cliffs. Dust rose like a storm from tens of thousands of marching feet, and blocking their path were 300 men. No walls, no towers, no escape routes, only shields, only spears, only the certainty that retreat was impossible. This place was called Thermopylae, and in this narrow corridor between mountains and sea, history was about to be rewritten in blood. On open ground, 40,000 soldiers would crush 300 in minutes. It wouldn't even be a battle. It would be an execution. But Thermopylae was not open ground. Here, the mountains pressed so close together that only a few men could advance at once. Here, armies could not spread out. Here, the strength of 1,000 was reduced to the width of a doorway. The narrow pass erased the greatest weapon of the Persian Empire, numbers, and it turned the greatest weakness of the Spartans into their deadliest advantage, discipline. If you want cinematic war stories where the impossible actually happened, subscribe now, because what unfolds here is not a legend. It is a documented moment when the world's largest army was stopped by a passage barely wide enough for 2 shields. These were not ordinary soldiers. Sparta was not a city. It was a machine built for war. Every Spartan boy was taken from his family at the age of 7. He was starved, beaten, humiliated, forced to fight other children. Weakness was not corrected. It was eliminated. Those who survived became something different from men. They became Spartans. They did not fight for gold. They did not fight for glory. They fought because that was all they had ever been taught to do. And now, 300 of these men stood between Greece and annihilation. From the distant lands of Asia came an empire unlike anything the Greek world had ever seen. The Persian Empire stretched from India to the Mediterranean. Millions lived under its rule. Its armies moved like a living continent. At its head stood King Xerxes, a ruler who believed himself chosen by the gods, a man who commanded the earth and the sea, a king who expected the world to kneel. His goal was simple: to erase Greece. The Persians did not march. They advanced like a natural disaster. Infantry from 100 conquered nations, archers that darkened the sky with arrows, cavalry that thundered across the land, elite warriors known as the Immortals, soldiers whose numbers were instantly replaced the moment one fell. Villages disappeared overnight. Cities surrendered without a fight. Those who resisted were wiped from the map. By the time Xerxes reached the gates of Greece, he did not see enemies. He saw obstacles. Greece was divided. City-states argued. Politicians delayed. Armies hesitated. But one king did not wait. King Leonidas of Sparta knew that the Persian army could not be stopped in open battle. So he chose a place where the size of the enemy would mean nothing. Thermopylae, the hot gates, a killing corridor between mountain and sea. And because Spartan law forbade full mobilization during religious festivals, Leonidas marched with only 300 of his personal guards. 300 men sent to delay an empire. When the Persian scouts first saw them, they laughed. 300 men, standing still, silent, no fear, no movement, just shields locked together in a wall of bronze. The messengers returned to Xerxes with the news. He did not believe it. Xerxes sent riders forward with an offer. Lay down your weapons, submit, live. Leonidas listened, and then he replied with 2 words that would echo through history. Molon labe, come and take them. Xerxes smiled. He believed the Spartans were either insane or about to become an example for all of Greece. He ordered his army forward. The ground began to shake. 40,000 men started moving toward the narrow pass, and the 300 did not move at all. The Persian army moved like a shadow across the land. It was not just an army, it was a living empire in motion. men from deserts, men from frozen mountains, men from cities so far away their names meant nothing to Greece. Each spoke a different language, each wore different armor, each fought in a different way, but all marched under one banner, the banner of Xerxes. To the Greeks, this force did not look human, it looked infinite. Xerxes did not walk like other men. He was carried above the crowd on a golden throne. Jewels shimmered on his armor. Gold flashed in the sun. He was not just a king, he was a symbol. To his people, a god in human form. To his enemies, the end of all resistance. He had crushed Egypt. He had burned Babylon. He had enslaved entire nations. And now, he had come for Greece. Xerxes had no doubt about the outcome. Every army breaks eventually, with fear, with hunger, with death. Yet he waited 4 days. He believed fear would do the work for him. Every morning, the Spartans still stood. On the 5th day, he raised his hand. Drums began to beat. Horns echoed between the cliffs. The first wave was ordered forward. The Persian infantry advanced confidently. They expected the Spartans to retreat. They expected panic. Instead, they met a wall. Shield against shield, bronze against bone. The Spartans moved as one, a single step forward, a single thrust of 300 spears. The front line of the Persian army collapsed instantly. Behind the fallen Persians, more soldiers pushed forward. But there was nowhere to go. The pass swallowed them. Men tripped over bodies, slipped in blood, died without ever seeing the enemy. When a Spartan grew tired, another took his place. When a spear broke, it was instantly replaced. The line never bent. The line never broke. Hour after hour, the Persians attacked, and hour after hour, they fell. From his throne, Xerxes watched, and his confidence began to crack. Then he summoned his elite, the Immortals. 10,000 warriors, perfectly trained, perfectly equipped. They advanced in silence. Their armor was black, their faces hidden behind masks. The clash was brutal. Spartan spears shattered, Persian shields split. But the Immortals were trapped by the pass. They could not surround, they could not outflank. The Spartans drew short swords. By nightfall, the Immortals were retreating. Their dead lay stacked alongside thousands of others. The unbreakable had been broken. As darkness fell over Thermopylae, the pass was no longer stone. It was meat and metal. For the first time in his reign, Xerxes was afraid. The second day began exactly like the first, with drums, with dust, with the sound of tens of thousands of men moving toward death. The Persians attacked again, wave after wave. But now they no longer believed in an easy victory. Now they attacked with fear behind their eyes. The Spartans were no longer fresh. Their arms ached. Their shields were dented. Their spears were stained so dark they no longer shone. And still, they held. They fought not with rage, but with rhythm. Step, lock, strike, withdraw. A living machine powered by discipline. The Persian commanders adapted. They sent lighter troops first. Archers fired from behind. Cavalry tried to force the Spartans backward. But the pass denied them everything. Horses could not charge. Archers could not see. Numbers could not spread. Every advantage of empire died in that narrow corridor. By midday, the air itself became hard to breathe. The stench of blood, the heat of bodies, the screams of the dying. The pass had stopped being a battlefield. It had become a tomb that was still being filled. And yet, behind the Spartan line, Leonidas saw the truth. They were winning, but they were also running out of time. No army, no matter how disciplined, can fight forever. When night fell on the second day, both armies collapsed into silence. The Persians were shaken. They had lost thousands of men to an enemy that refused to die. The Spartans were exhausted. Some were wounded. Some were barely standing. Yet not a single man had left the line.
Fires burned across the Persian camp. Xerxes walked among his officers. And now, for the first time, he did not speak of victory. He spoke of solutions. Behind the Spartan lines, Leonidas spoke quietly to his men. He did not promise survival. He promised that Greece would remember them, that their stand would buy time, that every hour they held meant another Greek city would prepare for war. Every shield they broke bought Greece another breath. That night, many Spartans slept with their hands still gripping their weapons.
Because they no longer fought for victory. They fought for time. Not every Greek was a Spartan. Not every man was born for honor. A local man named Ephialtes came to the Persian camp under the cover of darkness. He was not a soldier. He was not a hero. He was hungry, afraid, and greedy. He told Xerxes about a hidden mountain path, a narrow trail that twisted through the cliffs, a path that led behind the Spartan position, a path that would allow the Persian army to surround Leonidas from both sides. Xerxes did not hesitate. By midnight, thousands of Persian soldiers were moving through the mountains in silence. The trap was closing. At dawn, Spartan scouts returned. They had seen the movement. They had seen the dust on the high trail. They had seen the truth. Leonidas listened, and he understood immediately. Thermopylae was lost. Leonidas gathered the Greek commanders. The path behind them was compromised. The Spartans would soon be surrounded. Retreat was still possible, but only if the army moved now. Leonidas made his decision. The Allied forces were ordered to leave. They would retreat south. They would warn Greece. They would live. Because someone had to carry the story forward. Then Leonidas turned to his 300. He did not command them to stay. He simply told them the truth. Death was coming. No escape. No rescue. No reinforcement. Not a single Spartan left. With them remained a small force of Thespians and Thebans, men who chose to die alongside legends. Leonidas looked at his men, and for the first time, he smiled. The Persians attacked from both sides at once, from the front and from the mountain path behind. The trap closed. The Spartans charged, not to survive, but to kill as many as possible before the end. Spears shattered, swords broke, shields were torn from hands, men fought with knives, with fists, with teeth. The battlefield dissolved into chaos. Leonidas fell beneath a storm of arrows. The moment his body hit the ground, the Spartans surged forward. They fought not for formation, they fought for their king. Again and again the Persians charged. Again and again they were thrown back, until arrows filled the sky, until the air itself became death. One by one, the Spartans disappeared beneath the storm. At last, there were none left standing. Thermopylae was silent. The narrow pass was finally open, but it had been paid for with mountains of Persian dead. Xerxes marched forward. He had won the battlefield, but something had changed. The idea of Persian invincibility had died in that pass. All across Greece the story spread. 300 men against an empire, and they had not broken. The Greek city-states united. Armies rose, fleets gathered. And less than a year later, the Persian war machine was destroyed at Plataea. Xerxes fled. His empire never fully recovered. At Thermopylae, a stone was placed. Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie. They lost the battle, but they won history. If you want more stories where a few stand against the many, where empires break against courage, and where history is written by those who refuse to kneel, subscribe. Because there are battles even greater than this.